Hi guys, my name is Claudia and I have a practice called Social Justice Healing. Welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Embodied Art and Liberation. So I haven't gone on here too much this year, but I want to start coming on in a sort of spontaneous manner. I'm Gen X, so I'm very trepidatious with technology, and especially this year in seeing how these tech oligarchs have maligned with the administration. It made me really rethink my relationship to technology. However, I also want to just exist in the ways that I can communicate with folks in a way that's beneficial. So I just want to share some of what I've learned, because I've worked as a therapist for many years now, since 2011, starting as an intern, and now it's 2025, so y'all do the math. And in that time, I've really focused on the immigrant rights movement. So as you could imagine, this year's been utterly devastating for the immigrant community and our collective mental health. And yet, it's really made me think about, for myself and as a therapist and as a human being and with my clients, like, who must we be in all times? Who must we be no matter what? And that's given me a lot of courage, but the courage didn't come from nowhere. I really want to share some of the readings that really brought that out, and I want to highlight some of my favorite works, which is this one. I'm going to start with this one because it's phenomenal. Norma Wong, she is, this is a Zen and Indigenous perspective on resilience, shared purpose, and leadership in the time, place of collapse. So her whole premise is under the acknowledgement of the suffering that exists under collapse that would be taking place regardless of who was elected, because it would either be a slow or a quick collapse. To center yourself enough to imagine 150 years from now, what world do you want to see, and to commit to that vision. And because for me, I've always, in my work-centered values, that was kind of like what I would try to anchor myself to. But in this year, I think it took so much more. It had to be like crispy visualizations that you just use all your five senses to connect to and meditate on, and really dream up and hang your teeth on with all of your might, but also with enough rest. So Rest is Resistance is another book that I had actually the cards for. And that one that's by Tricia Hersey. You might know her on Instagram, if you're on Instagram, as the Nap Ministry. So she shares a lot about rest, but I also like to take that into what rest can really mean other than simply slowing down, because sometimes our bodies really need to move in new ways, or our minds need to really move. And especially considering myself as a neurodivergent person and a lot of my neurodivergent clients, like, what does it mean to rest? And so sometimes it means to stimulate yourself if you're understimulated, or to get out of a stimulating situation. But it does involve checking in with yourself in a very empathic way. So I don't have the book on me, but Rest as Resistance has been a really important inspiration. And so one of the takeaways that I'm extremely grateful for this year is doing a series at the library based on different types of rest. And so each station we embodied different types of rest, different expressions of rest, and we used art to reflect like what that is. So creative rest, digital rest, mental rest, physical rest, and so forth. So that's been really inspiring too. Another book has been the Tao Te Ching, sorry. And this is a book I've heard about forever, and they sell this one. Sorry, I'm gonna let Mia out, my dog. Go on, puppy. So, the concept of easeful action to me really flows into this idea of when nothing works, as well as the idea of rest, because easeful action means even our actions can and should be restful. And Norma Wang also talks about that. Like in your rush of forcing your agenda, if, under capitalism, we're forcing things, right? We're going at such a fast speed that sometimes excludes our well-being and that of others. So Norma Wang says to not go with such haste that you don't even know why you're doing what you're doing. So to really think about and embody the way you want to approach things, not only your goal. And I think that's very, very useful in times like these, because we have to move with a lot of courage in this year. We've had to muster a lot of courage, and it's going to continue to take courage, although I'm feeling more hopeful because I do see the manifestation of something that I've always believed, that under the weight of its collapse, under the weight of all of the depraved abuses and oppression, corruption that we've seen, that has been more hidden. It's all coming out, and I think under the weight, it's all going to come apart. And so I feel more confidence in that, although I'm also at the same time mourning the suffering of my neighbors that are selling, flowers in the rain, of folks that are unhoused and everything. So there's always a space for mourning. And so that's another thing I wanted to share, is that this year I learned a little bit about IFS, which is a therapeutic approach that's been really interesting. And what I like about it is that you consider all the parts of yourself as though they all exist in one system. They're all reflective of the family you grew up in, but you don't reject any part of you. You really extend love and care for all your parts. And this has helped me have more compassion for the parts of me that resist change, or that are afraid, or that, just, fall into bad habits, while I'm still trying to break those habits, if that makes any sense. Because the truth is, we all have paradoxes. We all have conflicting interests. And as we're growing, it can be better for us to show some love to those parts of us and try to understand what they're trying to do for us. So one of my favorite concepts in IFS is that our true self energy is courage, calm, curiosity, compassion, confidence, creativity, connectedness, clarity, patience, presence, perspective, persistence, and playfulness. And my favorite tends to be playfulness, so that's why I always do lean into art. It's always helped me process, but especially this year. So I just want to, in the spirit of play, I want to play with a card that I got regarding IFS, and they're all representing different aspects of the self, these cards. And so these have been fun to use as well, just to play with the spontaneous connection to the physical world and how they might relate. So this is a card that comes up right now that just came up for me. As you can see, it's a little kid. It's kind of being humiliated. So tell me in the comments below, what does this bring up for you? For a friend of mine, this was instantly very, very moving. It reminded her of a few things. But I want to hear from you what this brings up for you. So this is usually how I use them. I just ask folks to interpret them for themselves. This is another one. So here's another one. So this is someone else's artwork, but I do hope to make my own deck of cards. I find these to be very fun for personal use as well as professional, because it can stimulate dialogue and introspection. So tell me below if those cards mean something for you. And that's been a fun thing to play. I'm also working on some cards with a friend of mine who also inspired me to make a year-end reflection. So I want to share that with you. This year I've got to go to the Immigrant Day of Action conference, and I did a presentation on activating our innate medicine, grounding through creative connection practices, and the wisdom of our five senses. So this is an invitation to lean into our body's wisdom and a lot of different practices to understand where our ancestral pain points are and how we course correct using our own ancestral medicine. So through that self-reflection, we can build a lot of confidence in accurately understanding what needs course correction. So in my family, I'm going through a grief process right now. I lost a friend this year. This is James, and he was one of my favorite people in high school, and in a way he raised me with a lot of love. He brought me out of a very, very difficult time. So he's someone I'm mourning. I'm also mourning my mother, who you could see here is a muralist, a sculptor. She's painted these paintings you see here and sculpted a lot of things that have connected me to her culture in Colombia. So mourning her, because although she's still with me, she's in the end stages of Alzheimer's. I'm also mourning the relationship with my father, who is a die-hard MAGA person, and in addition to that has displayed a lot of inflexibility in her care and a refusal to kind of accept any kind of feedback. Even though I've done hospice work, he doesn't have a lot of empathy, so it's really hard for him to read her grimaces and her discomfort. He just really disregards a lot of things. So that's been extremely difficult. However, in the mourning of that relationship with him, because it exists, but it's really transactional, I found myself letting go and just kind of surrendering to the truth of what is possible in this relationship, with no longer seeking like a father figure, if that makes sense. No longer seeking the love and care that a father typically gives a daughter, but instead just seeing him as someone who's kind of ancillary to my mother. Part of my mourning is also that she chose him as a partner, if I'm being honest. And I know that's very heavy. Part of my neurodivergence is just sort of being blunt, but it's been many decades in the process, I guess you could say. Another thing that I think I struggled with this year is accepting my perimenopause and just physical changes in energy and like the way my body feels. But I'm also surrendering to that change and embracing it, because just seeing how much resistance there is to aging in general, I really want to embody the wisdom that comes with that. So that's something I also learned. But going back to this art practice that has really propelled me, I want to just share some more tools. So this was a creative practice I've been doing for this year, has been doodling little doodles here in La Habra Music Center. I actually took drumming lessons this year and singing lessons, and although I don't have a huge range, but even just understanding my range and what songs kind of suit my range, which is kind of like a lower range than a lot of women, that's been great because it made me feel really comfortable singing. And singing is really good for your polyvagal nerve, in kind of regulating your nervous systems, and especially drumming at the same time. It's been very, very difficult, but trying something new is something I always want to do. I think it's really good for the brain to be a beginner, and like even the spirit, like taking on the beginner's mind, as is shared in Buddhism. So anyways, I'll just share a few more pages. These are just simple things from around my house, some of my art supplies, my sticker books, like some of the art from Colombia that I grew up around, that's in my home, luggage and the gate near my house, a marker. And then I go into the abstract pretty quickly. So let me know what you think of drawing for self-care, for self-regulation. I find it really fun. And so I hope to continue this. And then with my friend Dulce Corazon, she's all about connecting to the year and what's happened. So Slay is a fundraiser I'm doing for Whittier Pride. Another thing I've done this year is engaged more in queer community. I live somewhat close to LA, but not very close. And since I don't love driving, this year has really been more for me about hyper focusing on my neighborhood, getting to know the day laborers nearby, the flower vendors, and a lot of the folks that are involved in helping our immigrant neighbors locally, hyper locally. So I have been involved for many years with Chirla, and they're phenomenal, but it's also been really fun to kind of organically work with some other neighbors nearby through Vecinos Unidos. We just kind of created our own very informal organizing group, but it's very informal. So that's been nice as well. So anyways, those are some of the things that have helped me this year, some of my takeaways in the losses. And one of the most painful losses has been another mother of mine, which her name is Victoria Yaneo, and I lost her this year. She's the mother of my best friend, one of my best friends since childhood. And knowing her has been very inspiring because she's a very joyful woman, and she also, in a way, raised me. She used to call me her cool mom before Mean Girls. And she actually was like a second mom, very loving, very joyful, very sweet, calm, very chic. So yeah, it's lovely to have loving inspirations in your life, but I'm grateful to also deepen the relationships that I have in my life. So another mother that I still have in my life, her name is Mary, and she wrote a book. If I can find it, I'll share it with you. But she invited me to this art making experience with Kim Abels, who she went to art school with. And this says, to love is to protect. This is what I made there in Kim's studio. So get yourself some really inspired, loving elders. Take care of them. Stay in community. And let me know for you all what this year has been like and what's kept you moving forward, like Norma Wong says, towards the life, towards the building of what comes after the collapse, rooted in, to me, rooted in love. It has to be rooted in love, like Bell Hooks says. Everything should be love in all dimensions, love, care, but with the understanding that love and abuse do not coexist. So in order to properly love, we have to learn to unlearn abuse, which can be very difficult, because once we acknowledge what's abuse, we might acknowledge that some relationships just may not be what we hope for them to be. So I hope this was helpful. Let me know down below if you would like to see more of these. I'm thinking about streaming. So if you think that live streaming with some cards, let me know down below if some live streaming with some of these interactive cards based on IFS, internal family systems, would be good. And how you have embodied like community care, movement. I know I mentioned drumming. I haven't done as much dancing as I'd like, or honestly lifting. I want to go back to lifting, but the drumming's been phenomenal. I had to take a break, but I hope to continue. So yes, it's been a very, very hard year for many reasons, but among everything, I do feel a deep sense of gratitude despite everything. Gratitude for community, for deepening these local connections. Tomorrow is our drag show, so I'm going to put a link to that if anyone wants to go tomorrow in Whittier. That'll be a fundraiser for Whittier Pride. So getting more connected to queer community, just kind of like getting more committed to the immigrant and queer folks that I love and that I'm getting to know as well. Mourning and some radical acceptance has helped too. And definitely creativity, drawing. Okay, so let me know what you guys think and what your year has been like, what you think about live streaming, if you think it's worth doing, and how you've integrated care into community and into like what a lot of folks call self-care, but I think it's more important that we center around community. Although there's definitely a place for like deep inner work in individual therapy or with friends one-on-one, but not ever excluding the collective, because I think that's where we need to return to. Okay, thank you. Bye.